Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm going to be talking about, in a second attempt to record this video, I'm going to talk about Don't Worry Darling. It hit theaters today and I saw it last night. I'm going to be avoiding the story of this because if you have seen the trailer for it, which I did react to, there's a lot hiding in this. So I'm going to avoid story stuff for it. So it's going to sound vague in a little bit of ways. So if you do want me to go more into like spoilers and the story itself, I'll just do a separate video on that if the demand is there. So Don't Worry Darling, I'm pretty much going to read the synopsis. I have it right beside me. So in the 1950s, Alice and Jack, played by Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, they lived in this community called Victory, which is an experimental company town that that houses the men who work on this top secret project in Victory. And it's a whole 50s dynamic. The men are at work, the women are at home. Like it's the 50s. I don't know what to do about it. And basically Alice starts to see cracks in this perfect facade of this town. And she starts to question what is happening in Victory and what the men are actually working on in this town. And that's basically the gist of this movie. The best way I can describe this is if they got an episode of Black Mirror on Netflix, stretched it out to like a 2-hour length, because this is basically a 2-hour movie, and then have it be directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It is directed by Olivia Wilde. We're not going to get into the drama of all that, but this is pretty much an M. Night Shyamalan movie. There's a point where I realized that, and that was a very funny realization that this is just straight up an M. Night Shyamalan movie. So if you like at least any of these kind of movies, I think you'll probably enjoy this. And obviously there's been a pretty big divide because critics, I usually don't talk about Rotten Tomatoes in my reviews, and I typically try to avoid it, but I feel like this is a big point of discussion. This isn't really being received well by critics. It's actually pretty low on Rotten Tomatoes, but I'm glad that I moved my review to today, the day of release, because I checked the audience score for this, and it's, last I saw, it was pretty high, like in the upper 80s and lower 90s. And I gotta admit, that's around how I feel about it. I enjoyed a good chunk of this movie. I think Florence Pugh, I think, is the best part about this movie pretty easily. I wasn't expecting anything less. But yeah, no, Florence Pugh kills it. If the rest of the movie held up as much as Florence Pugh's performance, I think this easily could have been an awards contender, but I don't think that's going to happen. Chris Pine plays the villain in this movie, and he does a very good job. He chews up the scenery in this, and he was a lot of fun to watch, although he's very, very creepy in this movie. And of course, there is the big elephant in the room in this movie, and that is Harry Styles. This is his first full-on leading role. He appeared in Dunkirk and only had a couple of lines, but he was pretty good in Dunkirk. And I will say, he's fine in this movie. They set him up because all of his scenes are either with Florence Pugh or Chris Pine, both of them amazing actors. But you can tell Harry's trying his best. There's been a clip going around from the movie that's not really that good, but that's like the lowest point of Harry's acting in this movie. Harry's been talking about like not wanting to act anymore, like after his next movie, My Policeman, but I think he could if he wanted to. He did fine in this. Visually, like from a technical standpoint, Don't Worry Darling is a very well made movie. It is a very pretty movie, and it looked great on a big screen. Cinematography was gorgeous. I don't remember the person's name who did this, but they also did the cinematography for A Star Is Born with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. So, and I thought that had good cinematography. So, again, I like the through line of guy knows what he's doing. And I guess we also have to talk about Olivia Wilde too, because not only does she direct this movie, she also has like a supporting role in this, and I think she was very funny in this supporting role, like a very funny but also really important supporting role. And there's just parts of it that I think she has some great one-liners. I think maybe that's why she put herself in that role. But as a director, there's potential here. Because her first movie was Booksmart, which I thought was okay. Wasn't really my cup of tea for that kind of movie, but I get why people loved it so much. And going from that to this is a huge jump, and she handled it pretty well. I think the biggest flaw in this movie is probably where the story goes. For the first 2 acts of the movie, I was in and just like, okay, where are we going with this? I have no idea what's going to happen in this movie. Like, I was fully in. I was invested in this story. And in the 3rd act, they kind of dropped the ball. Yeah, the 3rd act was really rushed in this movie, and there's not really any payoff. It wasn't really that much of a satisfying ending. Obviously, no spoilers. And if you do want that video, I will do it. But that's by far the biggest issue with me, is that it wasn't entirely wrapped up the way that I wanted it to. There were still a couple things left up in the air that was up for interpretation, and honestly, if you don't do that right, that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, and this movie didn't really do that right. And also, I gotta give a shout out to KiKi Layne, who has a very, very small role in this, but she does incredible with what she has, and I think she was fantastic in this as well. Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Don't Worry Darling. I feel like I'm in the minority on this. I feel like this was a really well put together movie. I think most of the acting was very good. The technical aspects behind the scenes were stunning. It was an incredibly well made movie, a very pretty one, and I really just think if they didn't drop the ball on the final act, this could have been one of the year's best movies. But it's up there. I'll give him that. If I had to give it a score, I would probably give it like an 8 out of 10. I actually surprisingly thoroughly enjoyed this. It surpassed my expectations. Those are my thoughts on Don't Worry Darling. Things are going to pop up right here. Right here is going to be where you can get a similar video that I think you might like. And right up here is where you can subscribe. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.